Today, everyone is using at least a few devices based on Linux. Linux is used in PCs, laptops, servers, single board computers like Raspberry Pi, on TVs, and on set-top boxes, etc. Linux has been around from 1990s. The first version of Linux was released in 1991. So what is a Linux? To understand Linux, we will first see the history of Linux and how it came in existence. Let's go way back in 1960s. AT&T was working on a time-sharing operating system called Multics, Multiplexed Information and Computing Service. The meaning of time sharing in computing world is the sharing of computing resources between users. Multics was a joint project between MIT, Bell Laboratories and General Electric. Multics didn't get much attention and AT&T dropped the Multics project, but it made a solid foundation for today's modern operating systems. In that same era, these guys, Ken Thompson, Dennis Ritchie, and others, developed the operating system called as Unix. Later, they rewrote Unix in a C language to make it portable. That caused Unix to become a popular operating system in universities and in businesses. In 1970s, Computer System Research Group (CSRG) developed Berkeley Software Distribution (BSD) based on Unix. CSRG was a research group at the University of California. The members of CSRG formed a company called the Berkeley Software Distribution Incorporated (BSDI) and started selling licenses for OSBSD 386 for computer systems. When Unix Systems Laboratory saw that, they filed a lawsuit against BSDI for using proprietary trade secrets and source code in a BSD 386 operating system. Then USL and BSDI settled the lawsuit. There was a guy in MIT, Richard Stallman. He was thinking of a completely different idea about the operating system. He wanted to have complete control over the underlying operating system so that users can do whatever they want with the system for completely free. So he started GNU operating system project under a Free Software Foundation, which is a combination of completely free OS as well as a software. GNU is acronym for GNU is not Unix. General Public License (JPL) was written by Richard Stallman under the Free Software Foundation for GNU projects, which guarantees end users the freedom to run, modify and share the software. But GNU kernel, which is used inside GNU OS, didn't get much attention. This is a guy, Linus Torvalds, who created Linux. One friend of Linus Torvalds told him about the Free Software Foundation. Linus got inspired by it, and from then Linux became a part of a GNU project and created a GNU plus Linux operating system, now just called as Linux. So what is the difference between Linux and GNU? Short answer is GNU is an operating system under Free Software Foundation and Linux is a kernel used inside that operating system. As GPL gives right to users to modify the operating system and to share it without copyright, many community members developed different distros like Ubuntu, Fedora, CentOS, and desktop environments like GNOME, Mate, and Cinnamon. So there are hundreds of Linux distributions available today. You can download it for completely free. Try and see which distro fits in your needs. Being an open source, Linux have many advantages over Windows. The first one, Linux is an open source, so we can see what's inside it by analyzing the code. Most of Linux OS are completely free. Linux is much more secure than the competitor Windows OS. Linux is also known for its stability, performance, and compatibility with different hardware. You can run Linux on a single board computers like Raspberry Pi with only 2 GB of RAM. You can install Linux on a 10-year-old computer to give a rebirth. Nearly 60% of web servers on the internet is hosted on a Linux. Companies like Google, Facebook uses Linux. Another advantage you will get with the Linux is about the customization. You can do whatever you want with the Linux law. We can customize Linux OS however we want. Linux is a privacy focused. Linux is built around the privacy as a first. Unlike Windows that always try to find ways to collect user data. Linux also has some disadvantages. When it comes to gaming, Linux sucks. But thanks for the SteamOS. You'll find many games there. Sometimes software installation is difficult in Linux. Linux OS does come with a software center from where you can install packages. But in few cases, we need to install it manually through command line, which is a little bit difficult for new users. We will see how to install a package in a Linux OS later. If you are using Linux OS on a laptops, then the battery backup is very low compared with the Windows. Softwares like Adobe Premiere Pro, Lightroom, Photoshops are not available for Linux, but you will get some alternatives. Linux on desktop and on server. There are many Linux desktop OS available now, like Linux Mint, Ubuntu, PureOS, etc. They are also becoming easy to use. Hardware vendor like Dell provides pre-installed Ubuntu OS on their computers. But still, Linux desktop market is very low. It's around 1 to 2%. Linux on the server side is a completely different story. Recently, Linux surpassed Unix in a supercomputer market share. Top 500 supercomputers are using Linux now. Popular Linux distros are Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Fedora, Manjaro. If you're looking for a good looking Linux OS, here are some distros. Solus, MX Linux, Elementary OS, Deepin.